Even as someone who produces content for FIFA Career Mode, I can admit that the game mode can get a little bit stale every now and then. So in today's video, I'm going to be telling you a bunch of tips that you can incorporate into your career modes that hopefully will stop the game being quite as boring for you. We've got some to do with transfers, we've got some to do with clubs and leagues, so let's get started with the very first one. And it's probably my favorite tip in this entire video. So I'm going to recommend you start a Journeyman save. This is something that a lot of Football Manager fans will know more about than FIFA fans, because it's not really a thing too many people do on this game. However, what you basically do if you're playing on Football Manager would be starting unemployed and seeing where the story takes you. Because you can't start unemployed on FIFA, we're going to start in Ireland, and then you're going to deliberately either get sacked or wait for the job offers in October. You should get a bunch of random leagues, usually in Europe. If you don't want to play in Europe, make sure you choose a different continent. For example, if you want to play in Asia, start out in Australia instead. So once you've got sacked or you've found your job offers, you need to just accept the job you want. If this save starts getting a little bit boring again, then guess what? Just head over to the job market or deliberately get sacked. You can get sacked, by the way, just offer any player a £1 release clause, and then head to another club for your next part of your adventure. This can go on and on. You could do up to 2 or 3 clubs every single season. So that means you could probably even do around 50 clubs if you did one every single season for your entire career mode. You could manage at 50 different clubs. And I think that's a pretty cool idea if you're interested in playing a bunch of clubs in a very short amount of time. If you're more interested in staying at a club for your entire career mode save, one of the things you can do is to try and recreate a famous old team, maybe buy some of their former players and recreate their style. For example, you could maybe try and recreate Brendan Rodgers' Liverpool by buying Luis Suarez for the Reds. Maybe you try and recreate Pep's Bayern or Barcelona by signing Messi or Lewandowski back to the clubs. Or maybe you want to try and recreate Wenger's Arsenal and you've signed Fabregas, Walcott and Vermaelen. There's any kind of length of clubs. If you support a club, I'm sure you've got favourite players. For example, I support Nottingham Forest. Maybe I want to try and create the Sabri Lamucci style. So I sign Matty Cash for my Premier League team and I try and play the sort of direct counter-attacking long ball that he played for Forest back in the day. These kind of things are endless, and I really do recommend you do something like this if you're finding the game a little bit boring. You can also try and take over a team using a real player. One of the things you can do is to try and recreate a famous old team, maybe buy some of their former players and recreate their style. For example, you could maybe try and recreate Brendan Rodgers' Liverpool by buying Luis Suarez for the Reds. Maybe you try and recreate Pep's Bayern or Barcelona by signing Messi or Lewandowski back to the clubs. Or maybe you want to try and recreate Wenger's Arsenal and you've signed Fabregas, Walcott and Vermaelen. There's any kind of length of clubs. If you support a club, I'm sure you've got favourite players. For example, I support Nottingham Forest. Maybe I want to try and create the Sabri Lamucci style. So I'd re-sign Matty Cash, I'd go really direct counter-attack and see if we can do well in the Premier League that way. If you're more into creating your own history rather than recreating someone else's, then why not take over a team using a real player? So what you could do is you can start out in player career mode, which not a lot of people do, maybe play the last season as someone's career, but you don't have to, you can retire on the first day, and then see which clubs will offer your manager the position. It can be fun to try and imagine what some players would play like if they were managers. For example, could Zlatan Ibrahimovic be a good manager? Could Buffon lead Italy in 2026 World Cup? Could Pepe go more than 3 matches without a sideline ban? These are questions that only you can answer by doing one of these kinds of career mode saves. If you've got a favourite player, of course, play as them. Or if you think there's a certain player that could be a really good manager, then of course that's another good option. A lot of people last year liked to retire Iniesta, but why not maybe retire as Busquets and see if you can make a different team be as good as Barcelona? There's so many different options when it comes to this kind of save, and I think you'll have a really fun career mode doing them. One big problem that I spot a lot when people are talking about their being bored of career mode is that they always sign the exact same players. So to fix this, you can easily just disable the first transfer window at the start of your career mode save. So take over a random team and just use the players that are in their squad for at least 6 months. Lots of people, when they start every single career mode, they'll go and sign the exact same players. Maybe they always go for someone like Youssoufa Moukoko. These kind of players are just overpowered, they make the game a bit boring, and you've always got the exact same experience. So having disabled transfer window means you have to rely on your initial squad for at least the first transfer window. That's more of an issue though if you're playing as a big club. If you're playing as a small club, you can do the exact opposite. Why not try the financial takeover feature? Take over a small club and see how fast you can rise to the top with this massive boost in investment. So for example, maybe you take over AFC Bournemouth and you give them a Newcastle or Man City level budget. See how fast you can win the Premier League with AFC Bournemouth. It's not going to be a great long-term save, but sometimes playing with the better players in the game can make you enjoy the game a bit more. You could even do a role play, maybe say that a French tycoon has taken over Bournemouth, and then go out and sign some of the better French players who aren't quite at the Mbappe level. Maybe Griezmann wants to play in the Premier League, he comes to live in Bournemouth. These kind of things can make the save a lot more fun if you've got a bit of backstory and you're doing a bit of role play. Another thing that really helps if you have a bit of backstory is playing in a different league. So let's say, for example, you always play in England, Germany, France, or Spain. What you can do is you start out in maybe Belgium, and you can believably say that maybe an English tycoon has taken over one of the teams there. Just try and bring through a bunch of young English players while playing in a minor league. Almost every team will have players you've never seen before. Every team will have players you've probably never used before. If you're finding them too easy, maybe you want to struggle during your career mode, why not create a creator club that's not quite good enough for the level? So in that Belgium example, maybe start one that's 0.5 stars. This would make you a really underdog story. You're going to be losing every single game basically in the first season, but you're probably not going to be sacked unless you give yourself really difficult objectives at the start of the career mode save. These kind of saves can be super fun. I did one last year with Deportivo. I done one as well in Scotland where I tried to beat the old firm with a team from the Isle of Skye. I've done one on this year's game as well offline where I took over a team based on San Marino and tried to make them a really awful team going up from Serie B to Serie A. These saves are super fun and I do really recommend you give them a go. If you're looking for Create Club ideas, of course, check out the channel because I've got a bunch of playlists on them that you can have a look at. And then a couple of last things that you can do to try and make the game a little bit more fun and maybe a bit less boring is to maybe restrict your signings. Always try and sign a similar kind of player, maybe the same nationality or the same style of play. Really tall players, really small players, really young players. Maybe you only sign over 30s. Just give yourself some kind of restriction when it comes to signings because this can not only, again, make you use different players, you probably use different clubs, different leagues, and all of these things just make the game feel a bit different to how you were playing it before. If you find that you're always starting new saves and only playing for a few days, then why not even try and investigate a team that you really want to use before starting your career mode save? That's where I found FC Südtirol that I'm doing my career mode save on this channel from. I was looking through every single new team and I saw this team based half in Austria, half in Italy, and I thought that was a super cool idea that I could really try and push and go all the way with a bunch of Austrians and Italians in the same team. So have a look at every single team, narrow it down basically on badges or kits, stadiums, whatever you want, and just have a look on their Wikipedias because almost every team will have at least one interesting article or something you need to know about them that makes them different to every other team on the game. You know, it could be they're owned by a certain nationality, they could be an embargo like Derby County were, there could even be some unique restrictions, something like Athletic Club, where they can only sign Basque players. But you know, if you can't find anything, just invent your own like I said before. Thank you all for watching. Hopefully at least one of these tips will help you stop being bored on your career mode save. I enjoy making these kind of videos and hopefully you guys enjoy watching them too. So give it a like if you enjoyed it and subscribe if you want to see more like this. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you soon. Cheers and goodbye.